Good afternoon. I'm going to share with you some strategies for fostering the concept of Homo Veritas. So, in our polarized society, an era of division, disconnection, disinformation, fostering empathy and cultivating the double consciousness is not merely an ideal, it's a necessity. I'm going to share with you an outlines for a visionary approach to advancing humanity toward the Homo Veritas. It's a stage of evolution in which truth, love, and unity guide collective consciousness. So I will be drawing on Ken Wilber's integral theory, the spiritual philosophy of Allan, and timeless insights, such as Gandhi's call to be the change you wish to see in the world. So I will be sharing with you proposed strategies both for individual and cultural transformation. So what is Homo Veritas? So it's not merely a theoretical upgrade of Homo sapiens, it is an embodied state where truth is lived and not just understood. So it emphasizes direct perception of universal truth, unified consciousness, balancing both the individual and interconnection, harmonization of polarities, such as science and spirit, the embodiment of the good, the true, and the beautiful. And from Ken Wilber's work, a developmental path that I see as waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. So different strategies to foster empathy and double consciousness. So integrative education is one. So modern curricula can be expanded to include emotional intelligence, mindfulness, cross-cultural communication. And I do believe that we're seeing this in the world today. I do believe that in certain areas, people are hungry for this and they recognize, at least I live in the US, so at least kind of mainstream traditional education systems are lacking in some of these things. But even in the US military, which I'm part of, they have been doing what they call MRT training. So it's kind of a cognitive based training where they teach resilience skills and really help people reflect, express gratitude, and reframe their thinking for the positive. Also, philosophy, art, and contemplative practices really help cultivate that right brain functioning that is so much needed to balance the left brain scientific thinking and scientific rationalism. So another strategy is storytelling, and then again the double consciousness. So double consciousness really being kind of that idea of seeing yourself or others from two perspectives, right? So from myself as the person I am, Anna, and also from my higher self, my divine self. So sharing stories across diverse communities, that helps build empathy. It helps somebody see what someone else is experiencing, what challenges they have, be it racial, be it ethnic, be it cultural, be it from what country they live in, and build that empathy. So again, the double consciousness, the awareness of how one sees, but also how one is seen, right? So this kind of goes along with Ken Wilber's idea of kind of this quad where you might have that individual perspective, but then there's a collective perspective, there's an internal perspective, and there's an external perspective. And this can be cultivated through reflective journaling, through role reversal exercises, intentional dialogue. And I would really say I'm a big proponent of meditation. So having those meditative practices, those practices where you become still and you just are, and you just be, instead of constantly doing something in the world or constantly consuming what the world puts out through social media or whatnot. Another strategy could be embodied leadership and service. So leadership that is rooted in dignity, compassion, and holistic awareness. So this is like a model embodied by healing leaders and service members. So again, I am a member of the U.S. military, and it really creates these ripple effects, right? So I have been working in my job, in my role, for several weeks without a day off, and I was able to have this weekend off to really renew and refresh myself. It was so much needed, and I was able to see that even though sometimes as a leader I might doubt myself, I might wonder if I'm doing the right thing, how as a leader I really am influencing so many people underneath of me as the commander. So I am creating that ripple effect. I am showing all of these people, which will ripple on and on and on, a different way that's possible. And leading with that respect for them as human beings and not just as somebody beneath me, and showing them that there is a different way to lead. So organizations and military units can be led with empathy and become microcosms of the Homo Veritas societies. Another strategy could be spiritual practice and inner work, right? So I'm a huge fan of Ken Wilber and his integral theory. So waking up is that spiritual realization, is realizing that I am not a body with a spiritual aspect. I am the soul. I am a spirit experiencing itself through a human body. Also growing up is that maturity. It's that emotional intelligence, cleaning up, shadow work. So this class with Andre has showed me a different way to kind of do my shadow work, and along with, harmonizing kind of polar opposites, right? So I can be two opposing things at once, and I can bring that into harmony. So all of these things must be encouraged through accessible spiritual practices. So again, meditation, shadow integration, and sacred ceremony, all of these awaken higher states of empathy and consciousness. And finally, another strategy of visionary media and culture. So support for art, music, film, literature, but that uplifts human connection, and complexity is vital, right? So anything can be a tool, and we want to use tools that uplift humanity. And so for me, I would even say that something important that kind of ties into this is being in nature and connecting with the earth elements and feeling the oneness of that. And so this weekend I went to a wildflower garden in which there were just sections of different flowers that were growing, many of them that were planted purposely to attract butterflies. And it was so beautiful and it was so uplifting. And so even creating art through something biologic like a plant or a flower is creative and it's inspiring. So integral growth, the waking up, growing up, cleaning up, these are some of Ken Wilber's stages in his integral theory, and they really form a potent roadmap for personal and societal development. So again, waking up refers to recognizing deeper states of being and spiritual consciousness. Growing up involves the psychological and ethical maturation required to navigate complexity. Cleaning up entails facing and integrating one's shadow. And then together, these stages help individuals elevate their awareness and radiate clarity into the collective field. So empathy really in this framework is, it's not just a surface emotion, but an outgrowth of deepening one's perspective. So one of my last assignments for this topic of Homo Veritas, I was really kind of struggling because I wasn't really feeling my best self or balanced as much as I normally am or should be, just because of my work in my current role. And I was really just kind of focusing on how horrible the world is and really focusing on all of the disconnection and whatnot, and not feeling very inspired that something like this could be possible. And I had this, kind of realization that I am focusing on the wrong things and I am giving my energy to the wrong things. And Andre really, he shared something with me that really struck me. And he said, Veritas is not about others as humanity, but about yourself as a living talisman. And that was very powerful for me, because that's what I want. That's my purpose, my desire, my aim. And all of the work that I do is to set the example, is to be that living talisman and show other people that there is a way, that this is an example, that other people can do things differently, right? And so I had a lot of thoughts about, the concept of not fighting against what you don't want to see, but moving into living purposely for what you want to see, right? And so, there's that famous quote by Gandhi that says, be the change you wish to see in the world. And so, this again, and I was able to come to this because I took the time to reflect. So reflective practice is very powerful. To see that I needed to change my focus, right? And all the things that I want, this golden age, this Homo Veritas, this what humanity can become, to be more connected and to care for the earth in a better way and to live more in oneness, is very possible. And one of the things that came to me was kind of this concept of the tipping point of consciousness. So scientific and sociological studies really do support kind of this idea of a critical mass, where a small percentage of individuals, usually it's considered to be maybe 10% of the population, when even as little as 10% can practice elevated consciousness, it tips the point. It creates this critical mass that shifts the whole. It shifts that collective consciousness and helps raise everyone else up. So, and this really gives me hope, that personal transformation really truly does have global implications. So every act of empathy, every honest conversation, every meditative breath contributes to that morphogenetic field of humanity. And it really made me realize that, the tipping point is closer than we think. And if just 10% of the people move towards this, we can create that tipping point for everyone. So one of the, Allan Watts is one of the, philosophers and spiritual teachers that recently I've been drawn towards. And also he has a very melodic voice that's very nice to listen to. But he's kind of known for helping to bridge Eastern and Western ideas. And I was listening to one of his lectures, and he had one that he was talking about the honest man suffers the most. So in this lecture, he talked about that those that live in alignment with truth will often face hardship, not because they're weak, but because truth disturbs illusion. And so I was thinking a lot. I this weekend I kind of went into a touristy town, and I was just kind of people watching, and there's so many people that are just kind of reactive, basically whatever programming that they have. Programming that could be different depending on any type of group of person, any category of person, any socioeconomic status, right? So kind of like the idea of the matrix, right? And how many people are really critically thinking and asking questions and kind of waking up? So he also talked about how suffering refines the soul. And he has a quote that kind of just blew my mind, which it's nothing that I perhaps haven't heard before, but maybe I was just ready to think about it in a different way. So he said, Allan Watts said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." And so I was really meditating on that quote, and the idea of oneness, and the idea of like this double consciousness. And one of the things that kind of came to me with that is that sometimes you think that you aren't something, like, so my example is like an enlightened being, or worthy enough, or whatever you aspire to be in like a spiritual, magical kind of community. You think you aren't that yet, and so you add on all this stuff, trying to add gold on you, add whatever on you to become this, and really you already are. And so sometimes you just have to strip away the programming, strip away the illusions, strip away what you are not, and then you realize that you already are that person, and you just have to wipe the lens to see it. This realization from that quote also really awakens empathy, right? So in every other person, we can see ourselves. In every drop in the ocean, we can see ourselves. And for me, from some perspective, this really helps me see, perhaps that villain in your life, they're serving you. They are playing a role to help you grow through a lesson, to help you evolve, as well as them. Perhaps it's some sort of contract or agreement that you have with them as a soul or a spirit. But it helps provide that empathy to see that we are all, coexisting in this world, growing and evolving, learning our own lessons at different times, at different rates, and that we're all part of source, of the collective. So going back to Gandhi's quote, be the change you wish to see in the world. So it's both philosophical, but it's also practical. So there's also this saying of you know, and I forget who it is, but how can I change the world? How can I make it a better place? And the answer is go home and love your family. And so sometimes, you know, and I kind of had fallen into this where it feels so overwhelming, and it feels like, oh, how can just one person, you know, create this huge change to help bring forward Homo Veritas or help bring forward the golden age, right? But we don't have to do that. We just have to play our own part. We just have to do those small acts that create that ripple effect that together helps create that tipping point, right? So change begins in microcosms. So that's our own minds, our own homes, our own communities. When we speak kindly, when we listen deeply, when we live with integrity, we shift that energetic blueprint of our surroundings. We create that ripple. So embodied activism doesn't have to look like a protest. And my point earlier of live for what you want to carry forward in the world, not protesting what you don't want in the world. But this can just look like presence. It's choosing peace instead of outrage and understanding instead of judgment. So just to kind of wrap this talk up, to foster empathy and that double consciousness in modern society, we must lead with wholeness. And wholeness, Alan Watts, one of his recent lectures I was listening to, wholeness is embracing all of yourself, your divine self and your imperfect human self, and loving all of it. Through these strategies I've shared with you, through integral practices, through honest living, spiritual embodiment, and that micro level change in your own home, at your job, we all can push forward this emergence of Homo Veritas. So each of us, in truth, is a living talisman. And I love that once again. I am a living talisman of the future that we long to see. In this fragmented world, the medicine is presence, empathy, and the courage to live truthfully. Thank you.